Hello, hello, hello. Hi, you're watching the Firestarter Show. My name is LaKeesha Hines, and tonight we're talking about whether or not we need boundaries in our relationship. I'm dealing mostly with married couples, but you don't have to be married to have this type of conversation. Do you think we need boundaries in our relationship? I say absolutely, unequivocally, absolutely 100%. Yes, we do. We definitely do need to have boundaries. And a lot of those boundaries are there for protection, right? Protection of what though? We're going to talk about three things that we need protection for, from, of. Okay. So make sure you stay tuned. First thing we will talk about in terms of boundaries, privacy. So now, when you're dating, a lot of times privacy, that is not an uncommon thing, not an uncommon term. But when you get married, a lot of times people don't think about the need for privacy. There still should be a certain level of privacy, even when you are married. So here's the most common one. Your spouse is talking to their best friend, and the best friend shares something intimate with them, and then they get off the phone, and then the spouse wants to know, hey, how's so and so? Oh, they're doing good. Well, it sounds like they weren't doing so good. What's going on? What happened? Well, if the friend shared that with the spouse, and they wanted them to take it as something that was confidential, and they wanted it to remain private, is it a violation for you to share with your spouse? I would say yes, absolutely yes. If your friend said, or their friend said, that I'm sharing this with you in confidence, don't tell anybody, that includes your spouse. So there is a certain level of privacy, again, that we do need to have. Okay, so let's flip it. Now, let's say something happened in your relationship, something happened between you and your spouse. Do you tell your friends about it? Do you tell your coworkers about it? What if there's some pet peeves that you have that might be embarrassing to you or to your spouse? Do you share that with others? Do you talk to family about it? And I think in some way, shape, or form, we've all been guilty of this at some point, right? And developing this mindset, what they don't know won't hurt them. But that's not always true, especially when you're sharing something negative about your spouse, or they're sharing something negative about you with someone who actually loves and cares about that spouse. And they could develop some type of issue with you because of what you've done, or with your spouse because of what they've done. Now they're holding on to something you've forgiven and moved on, and they're still holding something against you or your spouse. So we do have to be mindful about what we share with others, because it can leave a lasting impression on the person who we're sharing it with, and it can truly impact that relationship in a negative way. So we do have to be mindful of what we say and who we say it to, so we ensure that we don't cause any negative impact on our relationships with others. Okay. So now I think also it's important for us to have a conversation with our spouses, so that we can have a boundary for what's okay to share and what's not okay, what should stay private within your relationship. Sex, that's a huge one. That is a major, major no to share with others about what's going on sexually in your bedroom, for multiple reasons. One, that may be embarrassing to your spouse. Secondly, that may cause someone to want to experiment for themselves and test it out and find out just how good it really is. If you're saying something positive, and if it's something negative, again, it could be something truly embarrassing for you or your spouse. And so we just have to be very mindful, again, of what it is that we're sharing with others, so that we make sure we're staying respectful. We make sure that we're not doing anything that would cause our spouses to be shown in a negative light in front of others. And so, again, we have to be mindful. So we want to make sure we maintain a certain level of respect, and that our relationships with our friends, that, we're being mindful of those boundaries, and we're having conversations with whomever we're having these deep private, intimate conversations with, to make sure that we know what's okay to share and what's not okay to share. Okay, so privacy is a major, major boundary that we need to have. All right, so let's move on to the next one. I am one person who's really big on energy, right? So feeling other people's energy, where I put my energy, making sure that I have enough energy to do what I need to do for my spouse, for my kids, for my clients. Energy is a big thing for me. And so now I know that there are different types of energy that we need and that we use on a daily basis. But the reality is, each and every one of us only have so much energy. So we have to be mindful about where we put it and where we spend it, because once it's gone, it's gone. It takes a while to be replenished and to get rejuvenated. And many times when we are pouring out so much, and we're pouring out all that we have, it can leave us feeling burnt out. And not just from a physical standpoint, but mentally and emotionally, spiritually also. And so we do have to set boundaries in terms of our energy supply. And I don't know if you thought about that, but it's so, so, so true. There's so much that we have to do on a daily basis. There's so many hours in a day. We only have two hands. There's only so much they can do. And a lot of times we will keep pouring and pouring and pouring until we don't have enough left to do the things that are priority in our lives. So I use this analogy of the car, right? You're driving in the car, you keep driving, 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 driving. Eventually, you will run out of gas if you keep driving. If you stop to the gas station and you only put a quarter tank in, that's only going to get you so far. So you have to stop long enough to completely refill your tank so that you continue to pour out and get on to where you need to go and do what it is that you need to do. That requires you to stop to fill up your tank. How many people have you seen riding down the road with a gas pump in their gas tank? They're still going and getting gas at the same time. How many times have you seen that driving down the street? Never, right? Never. You have to stop at a gas station, turn the car off, and actually fill it with gas. Then crank it back up and keep going. So imagine if your body is that way, if our bodies were this way, and we were this way mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and we run out of gas. We literally have to put our bodies in park. That could mean sitting down and resting. That could mean going to bed at night, whatever it needs to mean for you and your situation. But you have to put that body in park so that you can actually get refueled so you can continue to do what you need to do. And a lot of that requires us to set boundaries so that we limit our energy, right? And that we make sure we have enough to give to our spouses, to give to our family, our kids, to give to our employers. And so sometimes that means having to say no. I know those of you who struggle with saying no, you're like, absolutely not, LaKeesha. I don't care what you're saying. We can't say no. Yes, you can. You have to. It's for your own health. You do have to say no sometimes, because you have to leave time for you and all the other people in your life that matter. And what about when you've had just a long, exhausting day? As soon as you walk in the door, you don't want to be bum rushed with 25 questions from your kids or your spouse. Most times you want a moment to just decompress and just take a moment to just think, to breathe, to just put your stuff down, to maybe take a shower, maybe use the bathroom, maybe eat. I don't know, but you still need time before you're ready to give to your family. Sometimes we have to cut off certain relationships because they're too exhausting and too draining, and it's taking so much of you that you don't have anything left to do what you need to do. Again, sometimes, especially people who are in the helping professions like myself, you are constantly giving emotional support to others. And it's hard, right? Because you want to pour out, you care, you love them, but there's only so much that you can pour out, right? You have to get poured back into as well. So it is important to reach out and help others. It is important to connect with people who can pour into yourself just like you are pouring into them. That is significantly important for us all to do. Okay. All right. And then the last thing in terms of boundary. Oh my gosh. Time. Time, 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 time. We have so much going on. Only 24 hours in a day. And a portion of that needs to be sleeping, eating, working, and whether that's you have a job or you're working in your home, that's still work, right? I think people who are at home as homemakers, caregivers, housewives or house husbands, that work is more difficult. So, our time can be swallowed up by all of the things that we have to do, by other people, by our kids, friends, family, by work. And sometimes there's not a whole lot that we can actually do about it. We do have seasons sometimes where we're busier than others, but we do have to set boundaries. So we make sure that we are making the people who are most important, our relationships, we're making sure that we are setting those boundaries, right? To make sure that we don't get imbalanced and that we stay connected and that we don't drift apart in our relationships. And that, again, we are continuing to take care of those things and those people that matter the most to us. So, are you prioritizing the most important relationship in your life, which is you? Are you prioritizing yourself? Are you taking time for you? Well, I should say second or third, right? Because if you're a believer, God should be number one. If you're married, your spouse is number two. And then, right? Well, let me back up. If you're married, it's God, then you, and then your spouse, kids, and everybody else, and in that order. And sometimes that'll shift and change, right? Because if you have infants, they take priority over everybody except God. But are you making sure that you're prioritizing you? Because if you continue to put everybody else and everything else before yourself, you will burn out. And just like the stewardess or the steward says on the plane, before you attempt to help anybody else to put their oxygen mask on, should the cabin pressure in the plane change, make sure you put your own oxygen mask on first. All right. So I challenge you this week to find different ways to put on your own oxygen mask first if you haven't already figured out how to do it. All right. And per usual, if you are in need of my assistance, my coaching services, please call or text 727-213-8247. I want to say thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you all. And I will be here same time, same place next week. Have a good night. Be blessed, everybody. Bye.